When Radiohead released Creep, they captured a raw, exhausting realization, the feeling of looking outward at a society you simply do not fit into. It is a profound sense of inadequacy and isolation, the painful recognition that the world's pre-packaged identities do not work for you. That alienation intensifies when physical and cultural anchors evaporate entirely. Take the rootless experience of immigrants fleeing the collapse of the Soviet Union. When your geography, your political reality, and your cultural center vanish, you are forced into a psychological vacuum. You have to generate your own meaning because the external structures have collapsed. 19th century philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche looked at this exact type of suffering and saw a prerequisite for greatness. He argued that the pain of being cast out or disconnected is the required raw material for creating a truly authentic life. He called the engine of this creation the will to power. The will to power is the innate human drive to assert your own existence and build your own internal value system, rather than accepting the arbitrary rules handed down by society. We rarely read 19th century philosophy to figure out how to live. Instead, we use popular music. Across decades and genres, our music acts as a subconscious survival map, offering distinct psychological strategies to take the pain of alienation and mold it into absolute self-creation. The first distinct group to emerge from this alienation are the fighters. Psychologically, these individuals often operate with an avoidant or disorganized attachment style. Avoidant attachment is a pattern where a person maintains intense independence and completely distrusts relying on others. To survive, fighters reject all external authority. You hear this pure, uncontainable force in the White Stripes' Seven-Nation Army. The lyrics declare that neither the Queen of England nor the hounds of hell can hold them back. It is raw individual assertion, operating entirely outside conventional morality. Other fighters take a militant or adaptive approach. They consciously numb their emotions and forge an ironclad identity through sustained trauma and confrontation. They survive by deciding they would rather be the cold-hearted hunter than the vulnerable prey. Contrast that with the seekers. These individuals are typically driven by an anxious attachment style, which is characterized by a deep fear of abandonment and a constant hunger for validation. Instead of fighting the pain of alienation, they attempt to escape it by sprinting away from the system altogether. The seekers find their exit through the ecstatic path. In tracks like Kiza's Hideaway, the lyrics talk about a heart escaping beyond the meaning. They achieve liberation not through intellectual debate, but through overwhelming, immediate sensory experiences that make self-consciousness totally irrelevant. Taken to its extreme, this becomes the hedonistic path. True libertines discard all societal expectations of propriety. They build a personal code based entirely on whatever brings them pleasure, entirely rejecting the concept of shame. Both the fighters and the seekers recognize that the societal machine is broken. They just choose different tactics. The fighters try to bulldoze the walls, while the seekers change their frequency to phase right through them. There is a third group, the philosophers. These are individuals whose initial displacement forced them to turn entirely inward, generating deep internal security because the external world offered none. Look at this diagram representing traditional external moral rules. The philosophers collapse that structure down to the individual. We see this in the song Through the Valley from The Last of Us, where divine comfort is replaced with total self-reliance. This embodies Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, or Superman, an individual who completely bypasses the traditional categories of good and evil to author their own morality. Once that internal security is established, a profound freedom emerges. As Alice Merton sings in No Roots, home is no longer a physical place on the ground. Home becomes a self-contained environment they carry with them, illuminating wherever they step. This philosophical journey leads to an unexpected final evolution, the builders. This group represents firm, secured attachment, which is the psychological ability to form healthy, conscious commitments after successfully processing past wounds. We hear this in Johnny Cash's I Walk the Line. Because you're mine, I walk the line. Cash is not rejecting limits. He is voluntarily choosing them. He uses his autonomy to create a strict, personal framework centered entirely on fidelity. The ultimate act of rebellion is not endless destruction. Mature authenticity means possessing the sovereign power to consciously build new rules and willingly bind yourself to them. Reaching this stage of integration introduces a harsh reality. Successfully rewriting the rules of your own life does not magically cure the human condition. There is a heavy psychological tax on self-determination. Green Day's Boulevard of Broken Dreams captures the exact landscape inhabited by those who achieve actualization. My shadow's the only one that walks beside me. It is an honest admission that outgrowing conventional society leaves you largely alone. The external war ends, but an internal one begins. In tracks like Dave East's Me versus Me, the artist realizes that the biggest fight is no longer against the establishment. The fight is negotiating the massive complexity of a mind that has fully awakened. That is the irony of achieving the will to power. When you stop letting society tell you what to value, you are free. But you are also now entirely, inescapably responsible for your own isolation. Look at this shape forming. Western philosophy demands that we build this rigid ego, wielding our individual power against the chaos of the world. But that is only a preliminary stage of survival. Once you have built a strong, authentic self, carrying it becomes exhausting. To find lasting peace, an individual eventually needs Eastern philosophies of ego dissolution. Ego dissolution is the practice of recognizing that the separate, highly defended self is actually an illusion. This dissolution leads directly to Buddhist equanimity. Equanimity is a state of deep psychological stability, where you no longer feel the need to constantly assert your identity against the world. The fight simply ceases. The highest path to authenticity requires total flexibility. You use the Western tools of ego and individual will to survive the world around you, and eventually you use the Eastern tools of surrender to survive yourself.